consumption and production policies, including through circular economy models, best practices, and recommendations consultation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the regional consultations by the United Nations Environment Programme on the UNEA 4 resolution on sustainable consumption and production. This consultation has been organized jointly by the United Nations Environment Programme and our technical partner, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR. Thank you very much for having made the time to join this consultation today. On behalf of all my colleagues, I would like to extend our very, very warm welcome to you. My name is Cecilia Jenga. I am the head of the UNEP office based in Pretoria, South Africa, and I'll be chairing this consultation today. The resolution on innovative pathways to achieve sustainable consumption and production was adopted in March 2019 during the 4th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNEA 4. This resolution was sponsored by Indonesia, Japan, Colombia, Chile, and the European Union and its member states. The resolution recognizes that achieving sustainable consumption and production is an essential requirement for sustainable development and invites member states to consider approaches and policies for achieving sustainable consumption and production, but not limited to improving resource efficiency and moving towards a circular economy when developing relevant national plans and policies. To support the implementation of this resolution, UNEP is convening a series of virtual consultations in all regions in the course of September of this year, as we prepare for the 5th session of UNEA, the United Nations Environment Assembly, which will be held in February 2021. These consultations and the implementation of specific mandates of the operative paragraph 15, which we will present to you shortly, are made possible thanks to the financial support of the European Commission. During today's consultation, we hope to delve into the substantive aspects of these resolutions. We will also be seeking your feedback on a number of questions related to the implementation of product policies and the uptake of innovative design practices for products and services in your respective countries. In order to help us better report back to the 5th United Nations Environment Assembly and formulate relevant recommendations for UNEA 5 attention. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, throughout this consultation, we will use the terms Environment Assembly, UNEA 4, or UNEA to refer to UNEP's decision-making body on the environment. Today's consultation will be structured around the following agenda, which has been posted on your screens for ease of reference. My colleague, Claire Thibault, from the UNEP Economy Division, will share some background elements of UNEA 4 resolution and the consultation objectives. We will then hear from Lee Hendel-Reuters from CSIR, who will present an overview of the product policies and good examples of design practices in the Africa region, which we have so far collected. We will also hear from Mr. Henry Roman, the Director of Environmental Services and Technologies from the Department of Science and Technology in South Africa, who will share some insights on the national experience of South Africa. An interactive session will follow thereafter, where we will be seeking your feedback on 3 consultation questions that will be shared on the screen. The chat function of this Zoom platform is available to receive questions and comments at any time throughout the consultation. The presentation for today's meeting will be made available and shared with you after this meeting. We understand that as a virtual consultation, it may not be possible to hear from everyone who would like to speak, but be reminded that we are accepting written submissions until the 30th of September 2020. Let me now give the floor to Claire from the UNEP Economy Division to make her presentation. Welcome, Claire.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. So as outlined earlier by Cecilia, the purpose of today's consultation is to specifically look at the ask of the operative paragraph number 15 of the UNEP 4 resolution. And it requests UNEP to submit a report providing an overview of best practices on the design of products and services which minimize harmful environmental impacts, and an inventory of coherent product policies which aim at decoupling economic growth from environmental degradation through SCP. UNEP is also requested to provide recommendations for consideration at UNEP 5. So in response to this resolution, UNEP will submit 3 deliverables to inform the discussion. The first one is a global inventory of coherent product policies. The second one is a collection of good examples of design practices of products and services. And lastly, a set of recommendations on the potential of coherent product policies and innovative design practices of products and services to support the transition to sustainable consumption and production. So what we would like to hear from you all today are your insights, your expertise, and your knowledge about difficulties, challenges, but also best practices and success stories so that UNEP can collect and build on that information. Allow me to share with you a definition of the concept of product policies. Essentially, product policies refer to all policy instruments which aim at minimizing the negative impact of a product throughout its entire life cycle. Product policies therefore cover a range of policies, from the tracking of natural resources extraction, the uptake of green technology, the use of chemicals, the facilitation of the implementation of industrial symbiosis, to policies on eco-labels, green public procurement, as well as waste management policy instruments such as EPR schemes. So we have 3 key questions that we would like to pose to you during this session, and which were shared in advance via email. The questions are currently displayed on the screen, and you will see that they are anchored around the key elements provided by in the UNEP 4 resolution, that is the product policies and the design practices of products and services. So we do encourage you to make your voice heard. We look forward learning more from your experience during this consultation. Following today's discussion, you're encouraged to continue sharing details on your national experience in implementing product policies. We will also continue collecting design stories from businesses, and we do invite you to share information on good examples you have come across. Let me now give the floor to Leander Ruites from CSIR, who will give us an overview on the elements on product policies in the Africa region, which we have collected so far.
Thank you very much, Claire. Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you for joining us today. I would like to share with you some of the information that we have collected as the CSIR over the past 4 weeks to specifically reflect on the status of an overview of inventory of product policies that, that we have collected of countries in the Africa region. So previously Claire presented and shared the definition of product policies. And what we have done to get a better understanding of what product policies are available and being used and implemented by countries in the region, we have done a literature review. We have engaged with some of the member states through bilateral interviews. And we've also sent out an online questionnaire that have encouraged member states and countries to give more information on the different product policies that they have been working on, that is already implemented or that is even under development in the respective countries. So as you can see on the slide, we have identified this through just highlighting a few countries where we have picked up and we have identified product policies relating to sustainable consumption and production. These countries have also shown that there's information within these documents that refer and reflect on sustainable consumption and production that forms part of the frameworks that they have developed. And what we have picked up is that various countries have different policies that are at different stages of development. These policies also have a key focus on prioritized areas. It might be on a specific product that they want to improve, or a specific sector, or it could be multi-sector, looking at different sectors within that particular country. What we have also picked up whilst we were collecting information from about 17 countries up to now is that there are various documents that are not normally identified as product policies, but plays an important role in supporting sustainable consumption and production. Just to give a better idea of the type of information that we are looking for and information that we have found on product policies, I would like to just use the example of Mauritius. In the previous slide, we had about 17 countries that we have collected information from. That information, and especially the number of policies, we were not able to put everything on there. So that list is not exhaustive, but what we wanted to do is to really reflect on some of the critical policies that supports SCP. In the case of Mauritius, we've been able to collect from literature review and some other information that we have collected. We're able to pick up what the country has been doing and how the Department of Environment has been driving the SCP framework in the country. And this framework identifies various policies and strategies and national plans that has a bearing on SCP. Overarching, the program cuts across different thematic areas. It's a multi-sectoral focus, but also identified about 44 projects to support the development and implementation of sustainable consumption and production. In addition to this, various incentives and funding mechanisms were established in partnership with economic stakeholders, and this was done through various stakeholder consultations. In terms of the policies, In Mauritius, in the case of Mauritius, they have adopted a policy on SCP in 2016 with the policy support from Switch Africa Green Program, which is a program of UNEP. And in addition to this, they've developed strategic plans focusing on energy efficiency, as well as improving and establishing standards within the agricultural sector that assists businesses to change to more sustainable agricultural processes. I would like to now hand over to Mr. Henry Roman to do his presentation.
Thank you, Lee. I just wanted to check.
Henry, your sound is not coming through too well. Hi, Henry.
Right, is that better?
Yes, thank you. That's much better. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. You may move to the next slide, please. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to the United Nations
Henry, we can't hear you. I think you're still breaking.
Henry, it may help if you, maybe if you turn off your camera, that might assist. Hi, Henry, there's still nothing coming through. Program director, I'm not sure if we might, if we maybe have to skip to the second part of this presentation, or if we should just give Henry some more time.
I suggest we move to the next session, and we will come back to Henry, hoping the connection will be clearer. So if I could invite you once again, Lee Hendel-Reeses, to share a few examples of design practices in Africa region which have helped minimize harmful environmental impacts. If I would invite you once again, Lee.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Colleagues, apologies. I think Henry, while Henry is sorting that out as a mission granted by the Program Director, I would like to just share an overview of a few design practice examples that we have collected and that we have identified in Africa. Of course, there's many examples, and within this period that we have been working on the project, we wanted to identify an example that can identify and just highlight the importance of design practice and product design practice. The example that we would like to share today is about a company in Uganda. The company is called Kampala Gelatin Suppliers, or KJS for short. This company is particularly strong in terms of focusing on briquette, developing or producing briquettes for burning. So in connection to this, and in relation to this, the company also focused or decided to design efficient briquette burning stoves for institutions like schools and colleges, businesses that process food. And the design aspect of this project was particularly focused on making these stoves efficient. As a producer of briquettes for burning, the company has basically decided to take this product and to make these products, or the stove, and to make it from fired bricks. They looked at the design. They created it from fired bricks with a grating combustion chamber as well as a chimney. And in addition to this, the staff also construct this on the sites of the clients. This is firstly to assist the companies or the clients to build a relationship with them. And this is also to, of course, improve the design and quality of the stoves that they provide to their customers. The impact of doing this greatly assisted the sale of briquettes for the company. And if we just look at the environmental impact that this project or business was able to create, was to offset the over 1,600 tons that would replace about 2,000 tons of firewood, which is one of the objectives of this business. The impact of this also has a significant reduction or saving of emissions of over 3,100 tons of carbon dioxide. So this is one of the examples that we wanted to share, just to illustrate the impact of design for products that can improve environmental impacts. We do have a second example, which just in short is a company based in Kenya called Champion Shoes. This company was working and receiving support from the Switch Africa Green Program. Just in short, this company identified the quality of their products as an important part for their business sustainability. They took a very bold position to recall some of their products to improve the design. They've done this through an organization called Kenya Leather Development Council. And currently they are in the process of monitoring the impact of this major change they've made in their business. So these, ladies and gentlemen, is just two cases that we wanted to share today. We are, of course, looking for more examples. And as Claire mentioned earlier, please share with us some design examples that you have, product design or service design, best practice examples that supports sustainable consumption and production. We would like to hear from you. We would like you to share some of these examples with us, as we will be collecting this information up until the end of October. We will be sharing more contact details towards the end of the presentation. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Lee, for that presentation. Before we move, I'd like to once again invite Dr. Henry Roman to make his intervention. I hope, Henry, you're back online and can be able to make your intervention now. Dr. Roman, can you hear us? Okay, it seems the first time he was thrown out of the meeting by the system. I'm not sure what the challenge now is. Okay, so we don't seem to have Doctor. I'm just trying to reach him on the phone. Okay. Okay, so what I suggest we do is we move to the next session. We see whether that can be resolved. We can see your presentation, Dr. Roman, but we can't hear you. So we'll move to the interactive session. Please, I really beg your indulgence for that. We were really looking forward to listening to the presentation by Dr. Roman. Distinguished representatives, I'm now pleased to move us to the interactive discussion phase, where we have 3 key questions that we'd like to pose to you during this session, and which were shared in advance via email. The questions will be shared on the screen shortly. I am informed that Dr. Roman is now online. Dr. Roman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Cecilia. Sorry about that. My apologies, everyone. The system kicked me out because there was a conflict between the email and the one I'm using here. So I'll very quickly go through the presentation so I don't take too much time. So
Dr. Roman, if I could request,
is also looking at our mission is.
Yeah, I'm just requesting that perhaps you turn off your video, then that will give us a better sound.
Yeah.
Also.
Sure. Lee, if you could go to the next slide, I'll skip this one. So looking at the macro environment, next slide, please. Looked at the UNEA 4th session. What I've highlighted on here are just in the red blocks are key words that came out, and also a key phrase that I wanted to highlight being resource extraction, processing of materials, fuels, food, accounting for more than 90% of global biodiversity and water stress impacts, as well as almost half of our global greenhouse gas emissions. And as many African countries are resource intensive economies, this is a very key statement for us as we're looking to address sustainable consumption and production and transition to a more circular economy. The word that where the last red block should be interlinked. And I just wanted to re-emphasize that resource management, climate change, biodiversity, water, land use, waste, management, etc. These things are all interlinked. And when we are planning for it, we should plan in an integrated fashion as well. Next slide, please. The next slide, as just to give you a quick overview of what a circular economy is so that we can see how it relates to sustainable consumption and production. So if you look at what we currently have, I'm sorry, Lee, if you could just keep it at the front, otherwise it's going to lose. Is we currently have a linear economy where we take natural resources, we make products, and then we dispose of it at end of life. So that's how manufacturing is done today, very, very linear process that accumulates waste, that causes pollution. Now, if we want to shift to a circular economy, it's not just about taking what we're doing now and doing it better. It's not about recycling only, and it's not only about waste. If you press again, it's about sustainable materials management, about using our resources a lot more efficiently, and also about how we design our products. So product design is important. That aims then to decouple economic growth from the use of natural resources by using it more effectively. You can press it twice more, please. And thus, a circular economy is about keeping our resources in flow for as long as we can at their maximum value. Next slide, please. Now, this slide's a bit text heavy purposefully so that because it's shared with everyone, I hope. It's just comparing SDG 12, which is responsible consumption and production, with the reality we have, and using South Africa as a case, but I think a lot of the lessons that we learned can be applied across Africa as well. So firstly, it's our regulatory environment is not the same as what you find in Europe, and the new Green Deal is directly applicable to the EU. A lot of what's in it is really good stuff, but may not be applied to us. One of the things we wanted to highlight is brand owners. In first world countries, they implement packaging advances that address climate change, address sustainable consumption and production. But when they come to our countries, a lot of times there's this dual standard at play where they because it's more costly and cheaper to do it the old way, they continue with the old way. And I think that this is where brand owners have an ability to make the changes in our countries as well as where they are doing it in first world countries. And that talks to things like eco-design, which requires the manufacturing changes, and brand owners can bring that to us. Brand owners like Unilever, if they take phosphate out of washing powder in the US and Europe, then they should take it out of washing powder in developing countries as well. So, and in South Africa right now, we're moving towards EPR schemes or extended producer responsibility schemes for paper and packaging, for electronic waste, and for lighting. In terms of resource security, as we know right now, that race is on for access to resources. And if you look at Africa, it's very rich in resource, but we don't always beneficiate these resources. We take it out the ground, we extract the minerals, and then we send it off to other markets where it is then beneficiated, and then we buy it back at a much greater cost to ourselves. And one way to look at this is industrial symbiosis could be a way to keep resources economically viable for much longer periods. The other one is waste management, and here our informal sector across the continent is an important contributor to the 3 R's, which is recycling, reuse, and I forget what the third one is, sorry. And it's important that we look at integration of the informal economy into the formal, and it's not formalizing the informal, but integrating them. And already in South Africa, we're in the final stages of releasing a guideline document on waste picker integration at the level of the municipalities. Again, design principles need to be implemented by brand owners to be the equivalent to what they do in developed markets as well. And in South Africa, Packaging SA, which represents the packaging sector, has published guidelines already on the design for recycling for packaging and paper in South Africa. And the chemicals and waste pakisa that was referred to on Lee's slide for South Africa, one of the outcomes of that pakisa process is looking at design for recycling. Very important that it happens at that stage already, not at end of pipe. Next slide, please. Last year in South Africa, we also undertook with Green Cape understanding the knowledge-based transition to a circular economy. And I've just reworded it from South Africa to Africa because I believe the questions are applicable. It's how does such a transition support our development trajectory? Do we have the readiness, find the finances to support this? And then what sectors and governments are included here are most favorable to transitioning to a circular economy and which are not. It's important we know this because these are the levers which we need to push for our respective countries to make the transition. And then the 4 questions at the bottom, the last one being what RDI, research, development, and innovation is needed to support the uptake of circular economy within different sectors. And that's the role that our department plays, is looking at what do we need to do in that space. Because if we don't have a sound basis, it's going to be very difficult to plug and play the models from outside into your country. Next slide, please. Recently, we released a new white paper on science and technology that identified circular economy as a new growth area for the country in terms of economic growth. And then we also had a foresighting study done by the National Advisory Council for Innovation, and they also identified circular economy as a priority for the country to pursue. They divided it into 4 parts, being reducing, reusing, and recycling waste, ensuring sustainable water, energy, and food at the much vaunted nexus we all talk about, a low carbon and climate resilient economy, and they've included smart connectivity and mobility in communities. That talks to your sharing economies, your Uber type models, where 4IR has a role to play in how we transition. Next slide, please. My conclusion slide is basically, we need to understand what the global context is in which we're trying to operate. And this is from an economic perspective as well. As we know, climate change is going to affect our continent the greatest on the planet. And we need to start thinking about how we address that. Very important, we do evidence-based policy making, develop circular economy for our own individual contexts. Like I said before, we can't plug and play what's happening elsewhere, as our approaches will be unique and different to that of other countries. There's new ways of doing business that will be required, and that needs innovative approaches, and that's where the RDI aspect becomes important. Eco-design is vital, and that leads to, we need close ties between academia and industry. That leads us to innovation as well. This requires a complete system disruption, not just a system change. And this cannot happen by operating in silos. Coming back to my point around integrated planning at the level of government. So between government departments, we need to plan jointly. Circular economy can contribute to a just transition to a low carbon economy. And it also can ensure that everyone participates within that economy. Tapping into our indigenous knowledge systems is important, as it will assist that with innovative approaches that are uniquely African. We can tap into this not only to learn about the networks and how they operate, but also to diffuse innovative approaches through those indigenous networks that exist. We need an environmental centered approach that has to be balanced with a human centeredness, as we cannot plan in the way we did in the past, as this will actually just deepen inequalities that already exist in our societies. And a transition to a circular economy will contribute to both the SDGs and the nationally determined contributions of each country to the Paris Agreement. And that would require a very close working relationship between business, labor, government and society. My last slide is just to indicate the team of people that work with me on this topic. You can see I'm the only thorn amongst the roses in this grouping, and and with that, I'd just like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Roman, reminding us the need for integrated planning and policy-making approach, the need for a knowledge-based transition for Africa, as well as you are just saying that business is not business as usual. We need new approaches, and we need a full system disruption that also focuses on the need for eco-design, as well as integrating our Africa knowledge, indigenous knowledge systems into these processes. Distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now pleased to move us to the interactive discussion. As a method of reminder, we'll remind you that the 3 deliverables to inform UNEA 5 discussions around a need for a global inventory of coherent product policies to decouple economic growth from environmental degradation through sustainable consumption and production. Secondly, a collection of good examples of design practices of products and services and their impacts, which minimize harmful environmental practices. And third, a set of recommendations on the potential of coherent product policies. There are 3 key questions which are now posted on the screen. And these 3 questions will guide our discussions and conversations as we now open up for this interactive conversation and discussion. As I mentioned earlier, please feel free to raise your hand, but also feel free to make use of the chat, which will be monitored on a regular basis as you make your intervention. We are now opening for your various interventions. So please feel free to indicate that you would like to make an intervention at this stage. You're welcome. Please feel free to make an indication if you would like to make a presentation at this stage. Please also feel free to post your comments on the chat screen. I'd like to invite Caroline McCann. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope that the reception is okay and everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can very clearly. Please go
Excellent.
ahead.
Thank you. So I sit with 2 hats on in this meeting. The first is Slow Food International, and the second is Meat Naturally. Meat Naturally is a method of mitigating against climate change and to do broad-based livelihoods for rural communities. However, this particular comment that I'd like to make comes from our experience as Slow Food International here in South Africa. At the start of the COVID lockdown, we entered into a charity organization with 2 partners, a food rescue scheme, as well as the... In light of this partnership, what we attempted to do was to rescue food that otherwise would have been headed to landfills, sort through it, and where we could to turn them into nutritious meals, which we then give out to beneficiary organizations. In Johannesburg alone, we've rescued just over 400,000 kilograms of food that otherwise would have gone into landfill. And what we're talking about here is produce that's predominantly come from the fresh produce market here in Johannesburg. So you can see it's one massive impact that we've had as a means to mitigate against what otherwise would have landed up in a landfill. The concern that I have is, while it's wonderful to hear that there is this focus on finding ways to create circular economy and a very strong focus on green economies, our experience has been that there's no translation on the ground. And so there is a huge fear around, in this particular instance, using rescued produce, which is then done, cooked into nutritious meals. And I think that this really does need to be addressed quite urgently. We are, I know that there have been talks in South Africa in particular about the Good Samaritan bill, which has not yet been passed, but certainly that would go a far way to address the various issues, not just in terms of landfill, but also in terms of environmental and the SDG goals, which are apparent in the work that we're doing. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to make that presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your inputs, which are also being captured by our scribes at the moment. So thank you very much for that contribution. The floor is open. Please indicate that you're available to make your contribution. Let's try and get the conversation flowing. We're waiting for contributions, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. How product policies in your country have been instrumental to preserve the environment. What are the enabling conditions for higher impact of product policies, and how we can create further an enabling an environment for this to happen. So feel free to make a contribution on any of these three key questions or key areas of work.
Program Director, I see there's a hand raised by one of the participants.
Okay, please go ahead. I'm trying to see the name of the participant. Please introduce yourself and please do go ahead and make your presentation. Hombakazi Blow.
Hombakazi, yes.
Yeah, Hombakazi, yeah. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Cecilia, and good afternoon to everyone. It is a great honor to be here today, and thanks for the invitation. I am Hombakazi Blow from South Africa. I come from the Department of Environmental Affairs, which is now called Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. And I am here to represent the branch Chemicals and Waste. I didn't want to speak first because the previous speakers were also from South Africa. However, I felt it necessary for me just, as response to these three questions, to also add over and above what has been presented specifically by Dr. Roman, to say as South Africa, we as a department specifically, and in response to these three questions and to create an enabling environment, we have developed and reviewed policies and economic instruments that are aimed at minimizing harmful environmental impacts. And one of those was the revision of the NWMS, which is our National Waste Management Strategy of 2011. And this has recently been approved by our cabinet for implementation. And so we currently have the revised strategy 2020. And this strategy is aimed at promoting the waste hierarchy and the circular economy principles. And more importantly, it is a government policy that is aligned and that responds to the Sustainable Development Goals and also the country's National Development Plan. And also to scale up the transition and implementation of circular economy, we will be developing an implementation plan as part of this strategy. And also we have also published and have been in consultation with business and industry on our extended producer responsibility scheme. This will have a contribution in waste diversion from landfill. And also it is aimed at making sure that there is full integration of waste pickers. And Dr. Roman has mentioned the guideline that has been developed and that is due to be released for implementation at a local government level. And also recently, we've also published the amendment to the plastic carrier bags regulation. And this was necessitated by the need to ensure that there are product design changes, and also for us to move towards prevention and better management of plastic pollution. And also, this is also was raised by Dr. Roman, that as part of the waste, chemicals and waste economy Pakisa, we also have developed together with industry, the packaging guideline, which is also aimed at improving product design and recyclability. So I thought I needed to mention those in terms of what South Africa and specifically the Department of Environment has done as an enabling conditions, and to ensure that there is scaling up of implementation of these circular economy principles and other economic instruments. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Mbakazi, for that very important contribution from the side of the South African government, both in terms of policy and even in terms of looking for opportunities to scale up opportunities for the circular economy, including what you mentioned, which is very critical to this conversation about the packaging guidelines and the policies around the plastic carrier, single-use plastic carrier bags that's been ongoing within the discussions and policy review within the South African government. Thank you very much for that contribution. We would like to invite further contributions. I see 3 hands raised. If you can just allow me to get to the list. I see we have, I will call upon Florence Adongo. If you could introduce yourself and make your contribution. Florence Adongo. Okay, I do not see Florence. If I could call upon Abdallah Yusuf. Abdallah Yusuf, you have the floor. Okay. Abdallah, are you online? Okay, then let's go to Barbara Scott. Barbara Scott.
Hello.
Hello? Okay, I can see Abdallah. Can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you?
Okay, please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead and make your contribution.
Yeah. Okay. This Abdullah Yusuf from Ghana, from specifically Solon District Assembly, what we normally call the sub-district. In our case, we are more of several different public institutions. And for that matter, if you look at policy regarding products and for that matter services, we are more closer to the service aspect than the product. What I would want to say is that we have policies, we draw from main policies to inform especially our services, our planning and then service provision. If we look at, in terms of green economy activities, somewhere around 2016.
Mr. Abdallah, we can't hear you very clearly. If you could turn off your video, we will be able to hear you much more clearer. You can just kindly turn off your video and then we hear you more clearly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm saying that we are at the grassroots and for that matter, the sub-national level, the Solon District Assembly. And with the District Assembly, we are a public organization at the sub-national level with much focus on delivering of services and then maybe providing infrastructure facilities. Somewhere around 2016, we had a collaboration with UNEP, and for that matter, we came into the green economy, if you like it, driven activity. Most of our focus is to see to it that the economic policy, which are much of segregated one, because if you look at Ghana, we have a lot of policies that inform product and service, sustainable product and service delivery. We have policies like the Ghana National Climate Change Policy. We have National Energy Efficiency Policy. We have the Ghana National Drug Policy, among others. But all this feeds into a larger medium-term national development policy framework, which is normally made available for sub-national and sub-national organizations like our district to guide our planning and delivery of services and projects at the sub-national level. So looking at the issue of the green economy driven policies, like I said, somewhere in 2016, we collaborated with UNEP, where we came out with a green economy action plan, a development plan policy, which was streamlined into our medium-term development planning process. So for 4-year development plan, which started from 2018, ending 2021, these green activities and for that matter, projects and services have been streamlined into our medium-term development planning, medium-term development plan, which inform our action plans whenever we are doing projects and programs. So for instance, in our effort to implementing or to delivering projects, for instance, one of the issues is the issue of environmental, what do you call it, consideration have been streamlined into whatever activity that we are doing. A typical example is that before you even submit your projects to what do you call it, for funding, you have to ensure what we call the safeguard screen assessment, which will present as safeguard screening that will be assessed before release of funds or approval of funds are given. Also important is when it comes to the medium-term development itself. It is also subjected to what we call the strategic environmental assessment, which we brought us the strategic assessment report. That mostly is even required given our performance assessment under what we call the DPAT. The DPAT is District Performance Assessment Tool, which is used to determine your performance at the sub-national level based on which funding is released to you for you to undertake projects and service delivery at the district level. Apart from that, if you look at the projects that we are providing, especially educational facilities and health safety, this principle informs the issue of planting trees whenever you provide a health or educational project. This time, every project that we provide goes with water harvesting facility where we harvest water from rains just to help reduce the over-reliance on the pipe-borne water and maybe borehole water. So this creates the space where this natural source of water is used to minimize the over-reliance of what do you call it, other resource-dependent sources of water. We around 2015 through, we had the opportunity of having to collaborate with USAID, United Nations, USAID, sorry, under a project called RING. And in this project, the target was particularly women, because we know most of the environmental issues also has linked with women, especially at the village level, because most of them suffer from poverty. And because of this poverty, their livelihood mostly depends on environment. And for that matter, this project, which was called Resiliency in Northern Ghana, was introduced to support women. And with that, under the livelihood aspect, it had about 3 components: the livelihood and nutrition. We also have the sanitation component, among others. But with the livelihoods component, we focus mostly on crops like soybean production, which was done without the use of chemicals. So our focus was to use compost and other, what we call it, biotechnology that would prevent the damage of the soil and related organic material. We also went ahead after this soybeans and granule production. We also considered the cyclical nature and for that matter, the systemic aspect of it by going ahead to train these women in the utilization of the soybean and granule, so as to help them not only improve upon their nutritional level, but also to earn some income, and in the long run also help to reduce the impact of their activity on the environment. I'll for now stop here. Maybe along the line I'll add you other experiences, especially at the sub-national level, that is making much impact on the environment. Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf, for your contribution. Thanks. I'll just like to remind participants that we only have a very limited time, so really beg you to make your contribution and interventions, you know, as brief as possibly you can, so that we give each and every person a chance to make their contribution. Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. I'd now like to invite Elizabeth Kadogo. For Mr. Order. I'll go to Barbara Scott, then I'll come to Elizabeth Kadogo. So over to you, Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. All right. So I'm based in Kenya and I'm working under Switch Africa Green on a project called Green Tour Africa. And we're working with the tourism sector to integrate more sustainable business practices in the tourism sector. And as such, obviously, we're supporting, for example, right now, the new plastic ban in Kenya. I think this is really a milestone which came into place on the 5th of June this year, which bans all plastic in protected area. We also work with the participants, and that is really along the whole supply chain, yeah, from tour operators to tour guides to hotels, etc., on greening their activities. So really in terms of using circular approaches, how to reuse, how to recycle the products that they're using local products to replace plastic alternatives, for example. And we do see now with the pandemic that this is acting as a catalyst. It really has raised that urgency. And I think just from my side, we're also collaborating with different actors in Kenya. For example, there's the Kenya Association Manufacturing, the Kenya Manufacturing Association, who have launched the beginning of this year the Plastic Action Plan. So I think it's really, really important, as Eric also pointed out, Guantai also pointed out on the chat, of having that industry support to look for alternative solutions, EPRs, putting EPR schemes in place, for example. We see some really good innovations. There's an organization called T4 who are basically collecting plastic bottles. They're recycling them to textiles, for example. And a number of other actors like the Sustainable Inclusive Business Center that works under KEPSA, and who've been very, very active in promoting circular approaches with different sectors. So there's a lot happening in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Yes, and thanks for that contribution. And I also take note of a comment from Eric Guantai, who says that in Kenya, with preference to plastic pollution, the Kenya Private are doing their best to mainstream sustainable product design in their business's process. And on the end, the government have programs aligned to green economy and climate change mitigation. I also want to take note of a comment also posted by Florence Adongo, who says that Uganda now has a new National Environment Act 2019, which fully adopts circular economy, and is also a framework law, sectoral policies and laws being revised to implement this 2019 Act. So quite a lot going on in Africa. I would now like to move to our next presenter, and I'd like to invite Elizabeth Kasogo to make your contribution. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm working with WWF Kenya, that is the Worldwide Fund for Nature Kenya, where we are implementing a project funded by the European Union under the Switch Africa Green Program. And mainly what we are doing, we are promoting the adoption of sustainable consumption and production practices among MSMEs, in this case, the smallholder farmers within the Lake Naivasha basin. And the project is the Green Horticulture at Lake Naivasha project. And also we have an aspect of linking these farmers to markets and again improving their financial management skills. So in terms of policy, what we have been able to do, we are working with 3 counties within the Lake Naivasha basin, that is Nakuru, Nyandarua, and Narok, to make sure they mainstream the green economy and green economy strategy and implementation plan, that is GESIP, in their agricultural plans and strategies. In that, whatever activities they are going to implement in their agricultural plans, they are able to incorporate the aspects of the GESIP, where there is the adoption of sustainable consumption and production practices, amongst which where we are promoting the issues of efficient water use, the promotion of maximum use of organic manures, also the issues of soil and water conservation, integrated pest management, and also the use of safe use of pesticides, including post-harvest handling and the aspect of social welfare. And so far, the 2 counties, that is Nakuru and Narok, they have been able to mainstream the GESIP in their strategic, in their agriculture strategic plans. So then the other aspect we have been able to work on is we have submitted our findings or our thoughts to the public. Sorry, I'm saying we have been able to work together again with the PPRA, that is the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority, where we are also hoping to support them to develop green public procurement guidelines, which again, where we'll have the government institutions again being able to tender from green sources. So maybe some of the things we are also again we are able to observe is, one, we need again to upscale the mainstreaming of the GESIP to the other counties, because for now as a project we are only working in 3 counties. Then also there is a gap in terms of interministerial linkages, because for example the GESIP is domesticated, or the main ministry which has the GESIP is the Ministry of Environment, whereas the departments, for example, the Departments of Agriculture or the Ministry of Agriculture has not had an access to this document, and considering again agriculture is also key in the production. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I would now like to invite Diodas Somna, if I don't pronounce your name correctly, so kindly excuse me. Diodas Somna, if you could make your contribution now. Okay, I don't see Diodas Somna. I'd like to invite Joyce Chapungu. Joyce Chapungu, if you could make your contribution.
Good afternoon, Cecilia. Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Joyce Chapungu from Zimbabwe, from the Environmental Management Agency. As Zimbabwe, we have developed legislation on sustainable management of waste, in particular plastic, in order to minimize plastic pollution. So we amended our waste management regulations to provide for the phasing out of single-use plastic. So in particular, we phased out the use of thin plastic, that is plastic with a wall thickness of less than 30 micrometers. So that was banned already. And we also developed legislation to ban the use of expanded polystyrene, which is also known as K-Lite, which was mainly being used in the food industry. So that has been done already. And we also developed the Integrated Solid Waste Management Plan, which is our major framework in terms of waste management in the country. And that waste management plan promotes circular approaches, especially through incorporating the 3 R's in every production process, the recycling, the reusing, and the reduction of waste at source. And the country is also on its path towards the phasing out of all single-use plastic products. And to date, engagements have been done and they are still underway with relevant stakeholders so as to prepare them for what is coming and to enable them, especially those that are into production of such products, to enable them to make the necessary shifts towards production of more sustainable initiatives and sustainable alternatives to that. And in addition to that, as a country, we launched the National Cleanup Program, which is a program which gives all citizens a responsibility to participate in a cleanup program, which is held at every first Friday of each month, where every citizen is supposed to clean up their surroundings and just make sure that we create a clean environment, and to make sure that the process is holistic, and to make sure that it's more sustainable. We then ensured that during those cleanups that are done every month, we ensure that there is separation of waste at source so that we promote recycling, reduction, as well as reuse, so that we promote a circular economy. So basically, as a country, that's what we have done to promote sustainable consumption and production.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that experience, an example from Zimbabwe. We really welcome that. I'd now like to invite Dr. Ubon Swabia from Lagos Waste Management Authority, Nigeria.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Ubon Swabia from Lagos Waste Management Authority. In Lagos, we have come to know that for us to implement circular economy, waste management sector-wise, we have to ensure that we have our waste segregated from the source. So in doing that, the government has come up with a policy to ensure that 6 million houses are given waste collection bins. And these bins are to be circulated in all the houses in Lagos in batches. The first batch has to do with 1 bin first. Then the second has to do with the 2 bins. 1 bin is for recyclables, while 1 bin is for general waste. So we are making a way to collect all recyclables, including plastics. And we also have a policy that has set up community recycling centers in each of the 20 local governments in Lagos in order to harvest all the
I seem to have lost you, Doctor. Doctor, can you hear us? Okay, we seem to have lost Doctor.
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
So the recycling centers in the local councils are to harvest all segregated bins from the local, from the waste segregated from homes. And then the government has also gone into private partnerships with industries to build waste to energy waste to wealth plant. These plants are going to be off-takers from the segregated and aggregated recyclables from home. So as soon as we are able to ensure that all recyclables, in particular plastics, are collected from homes and other primary source of generation and are tailored to community recycling centers where they are cross-built and then taken to the processing plants and will be in loop. And that is what we call Loma recycling loop. We want to ensure that products that move from product line to the consumer, to the post-consumer stage, are also carefully and meticulously directed back to the production line in such a way that there will be no much leakage. And that is what we are doing. I think my internet is fluctuating, but I think I'm back.
Okay, no, thank you very much. We've been able to capture the main gist of your contribution, so thank you very much, Doctor. I'd now like to invite Mr. Ranieri, or Ms. Ranieri, sorry, I'm not sure, to give your input. Ranieri Portillo. You are welcome to make your contribution.
Hello, Cecilia and colleagues. Thank you for this opportunity. In our case, also regarding Kenya, and also being part of the Sweet Africa Green program, as some of our colleagues have spoken previously, we would like to focus on the aspect of the design practices and services that we have been able to support. And in this case, it's more specifically focused on mainstreaming the GASIP, right? The green economy strategy implementation plan in Kenya. And the way we are going about this is through a process of awareness raising of SCP practices and solutions within the agribusiness sector, and in this case, most specifically working with the coffee, dairy, and the mango value chains. And we begin with the process of awareness raising, trainings on including SCP practices of these agricultural practices within the business models of these MSMEs across different counties of Kenya. For those MSMEs that are focused on the domestic as well as the international markets. And we support them through individual coaching sessions on redeveloping and enhancing their business plans to have a focus on the adoption of an uptake of green technologies, but not just in terms of technology transfer, in other words, importing green technology coming from other parts of the world, but also on recognizing and mainstreaming indigenous knowledge systems as well. So we've mapped a lot of practices that have been in place for some time in Kenya within all three value chains, and went through a major effort of mainstreaming that and sharing that information across over 100 MSMEs and about 50 member-based organizations, providing training handbooks for them so they could begin a process of dissemination to their members. In addition to that, we've also been connecting these MSMEs and their business plans with financing institutions who are interested in green business plans and trying to tap into financial instruments that focus on green finance. In other words, trying to also catalyze the environment of green finance in Kenya and in the East Africa region. We also plan, and this is going to happen in the next few months, we're planning to also take this activities, or at least explain those activities in dissemination events in Ethiopia and Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that very critical input at this juncture. As you can see from your screen, our colleagues from the CSIR are continuing to post on this tool. It's called a Tomboard, or some of your key contributions. We hope we are capturing as much as we can. And where we don't, please feel free to continuously use the chat to make your contribution to the discussions. We will now move to the next set of contributions, but before doing that, I also wanted to highlight that there is also a contribution from Rwanda, the Rwanda Cleaner Production and Climate Innovation Center on product policies that have been instrumental to preserving the environment, and many others. So I really want to thank you for your continued contribution. We now move to the next set of questions, and this will be shared on the screen briefly. And in this conversation, we would like you to look into how your country is performing in identifying and picking up innovative design practices and products and services, which minimize harmful environmental impacts, and then also look at the requirements at some of these designs in a practical way. So again, we'd like to open this segment again for your contribution on these two questions. So once again, feel free to raise your hand. And secondly, also feel free to make your contribution directly on the chat box. Whatever you find, whichever of the mechanisms you find suitable, please make use of the resources we have with us.
Program Director, I see there's 3 hands that's currently raised.
Okay, if you can guide me. Okay. So if we can request Joyce, the technical colleagues, if you're able to mute Joyce, that would be really appreciated. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'd like to invite Yusuf, Mr. Yusuf again. Please make your contribution as brief as possible so that we can give a chance, because we have one more set of questions. Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can.
Are we on the second question?
Yes, we are now on the second set of questions. We are now on the second set of questions. And is that a new hand, or was it the previous hand, Yusuf? I also have on the list Barbara, Scott, and also Elizabeth Kasogo. Just reconfirming that these are new hands for the second set of questions that focus on design practices of products and services. Please go ahead, Yusuf. Basically, what we are requesting you to focus on is how can we encourage innovation? How can we encourage innovation in the way we design our products, services, and the practices? So that's really the question. How can we support and promote innovation. If we can get some contributions. From Barbara, if you would like to kickstart us.
Yes, Cecilia,
Yeah.
I think what we are seeing in the tourism sector, for example, I think it's quite an interesting sector where there are some low-hanging fruits, you could say, because it's such a fragmented sector. And circular approaches are much more common. And I think in terms of innovation, what I've been seeing is quite often the problem is, for example, access to finance, yeah, especially for the SMEs who come up with very innovative products and services and alternatives to existing products, yeah, they often just don't get that access to finance, yeah. And looking at the opportunities now, especially post-COVID, in terms of green finance and allowing for access to finance for smaller companies who come up with good ideas is something where in my opinion, you have that multiplier effect. Yeah, you allow small companies to innovate, but at the same time, that allows you then to have more competition and scale up.
No, thanks, Barbara, for that. Inviting other contributions for this segment of questions. If I would also like to invite, once again, Mr. Ranieri Portillo, if you'd like to make your contribution, please go ahead.
Thank you, Cecilia. Actually, as a segue to what Barbara was just mentioning, in the case of our project, particularly where we've been having the chance to interact with financial institutions in Kenya and in East Africa region, we've noticed that there has been a lot of innovation taking place in the area, in the realm of finance, of green finance. For instance, we've been engaging a number of funds that have been coming up with a number of very innovative ideas and strategies to blend structures. I don't know, some of you probably know the concept of blending finance, and this has been becoming more and more common to be, in the world of development finance, which is now being applied into the finance of green technologies, of the uptake of sustainable consumption and production practices, solutions, and we've been seeing just a multiplication, really, of different combinations of green finance. And actually, we've been able to participate in that and engage a lot of people. So it's a bit interesting because in the end, it's not the innovation that's coming from, say, in this case, from smallholders or from manufacturers who are coming up with new ideas or providing services, but it's on the other side of the spectrum of those who provide the finance to make those ideas, to help those ideas take off, right? So I guess in a way it's indirect, but it also contributes to, how can I say, to strengthening the resilience of a circular economy, in this case, starting a circular economy or helping it start and become strong. So just to highlight that aspect, there's been a lot of innovation in that aspect, in that sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much also bringing in the whole issue of finance and blended finance and its possibilities it can create towards this transition. Thanks for that contribution. Still welcoming more contributions. As we wait, maybe I can highlight some of the contributions that have come up so far from Nora Mugita, my colleague, says, in my opinion, finance and recognizing the roles of indigenous knowledge is critical. And in South Africa, we have the Innovation Hub, where SMMEs are supported to develop ideas into businesses. Indeed, that's true, and the awards were actually happening this afternoon at the Innovation Hub. And identification, the need for us to do a needs and capacity assessment, build capacity of the players and agree on specific SCP links, including links to financial institutions, linkages to markets for the sustainable produced goods, and that we need to expand financing to include the informal waste entrepreneurs. As a matter of fact, they self-finance their operations. From Uganda, we are seeing that the ministry, Florence is saying, her Ministry of Water and Environment designed an annual Blue Certificate Award since 2019 for SMEs on efficient water use and pollution prevention. And this triggered competition for recognition by the minister. And also, again, from Nora saying that the absence of financing hinders operations expansions, thereof market expansion. Elizabeth from WWF is saying we need to adopt a stakeholder approach in the designs of innovations. And yes, thank you very much for what you are posting. And I also see a contribution from the Ghana National Energy Efficiency Action Plan, where they're talking about minimum standards for energy equipment in terms of performance, labeling, and standardization as very important, including a rebate scheme for domestic users to exchange of old fridges for more efficient ones. So quite a lot of contributions that are coming from the floor, but I still would welcome any verbal oral presentations that excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you may wish to give at this particular time. But we really appreciate your active contribution to the discussion. Joyce, I'd like to invite you, Joyce from Zimbabwe, if you could make your contribution now.
Hello, Cecilia. I think I had raised my hand the moment I contributed for the first time.
No, thank you. Thanks, Joyce. I also want to make a correction. I've been told the person named Nora is actually not Nora, but contributions from the floor. So we really want to recognize the members that have made the various contributions and whom I mistakenly referred as Nora. We want to recognize and appreciate your contribution. Thank you very much. Deodath Somna, if I'd invite you at this juncture to make your contribution, please.
Program Director, we also have 2 additional hands. I think that if the colleague that you've asked to talk cannot come through, we've got 2 additional hands as well.
Okay, no, thanks, Lee. If I could also invite Letitia Nyaba, if you can come online and make your contribution, please.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. Yeah, the requirements to implement and replicate and scale up design practices. I think for them to be able to scale up, the finances are also very important. Funding is important. And then also the access to markets. Some design, they have nice designs, but they can't sell. And so it's sitting with them. So perhaps we can help with the qualities and the specifications, and for them to also meet up with the requirements of the markets out there. Thank you.
Okay, I was on mute. I'd just like to invite Barbara Scott to make any additional contributions at this juncture.
Yeah, I'd like to very much support Leticia's point in terms of access to market, yeah, because what we see a lot working, especially with local communities and small enterprises, is that the capacity to apply, for example, for funds or to bring their product forward, to gain market access, to have that connection, that lacks a lot. So, so this kind of technical support is really absolutely essential. I think the other thing is, if we look at it from a local legal framework, that is one side, but really that collaboration with the industry and having and working with the industry very proactively is absolutely essential. And the one thing, for example, that I've seen in Kenya is we have a number of innovation hubs, yeah, but most of it is in tech. Yeah, so we see a lot of innovation in terms of digital solutions, tech solutions, and so on, which is very important, absolutely. But I do believe that other sectors are falling a little bit off. And I think that is the question in terms of looking at tech solutions, yes, but also other kind of innovation hubs that really support in the development of new products and services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for that contribution. I also take note of the contribution by Simon Abdiama, who says in his country, there's still work in progress, and it will be good to know which country, Simon. And from a policy perspective, we realize government in its accusation places minimal emphasis on environment while acquiring goods, works, and services. And today, there is a sustainable procurement policy in place, and have amended the Procurement Act to take every consideration of the environment in every procurement. If you could just kindly let us know your country so that we can be able to note it as such. So thank you very much for that contribution. I'd like to see if there are any other hands for this particular set of questions. And as you can see, the postings on the screen using the Storm board continues to take into cognizance some of the contributions that you have made so far. And once again, if you feel your contribution has still not been properly captured or well captured or not captured at all, feel free to post it on the chat as we continue with the conversation. Okay, at this juncture, I do not see any more contributions to this set of questions. Lee, if I could request we move to the next set of questions. I also, as we move, take note of your contribution, Joyce Chapungu, on the side of the solid waste management plan in Zimbabwe. So the next set of questions, we look at the role of UNEP and the wider international community. And the question we have for you is, what role should UNEP, the UN system, and the wider international community play in addressing gaps and challenges highlighted during this discussion? So if you can reflect, we are kindly requesting you to reflect on the role that UNEP should play, the UN system as a whole, and the wider international community in addressing the gaps and challenges highlighted during the conversations we have had as we have worked through the last two sets of questions. So please feel free to make your contributions now. I see a hand stated as Nora Mugita. If someone's signed in using Nora's link, if you can notify us who you are and go ahead to make your contribution. I see now two hands with Nora Mugita. If any of the two of you can start off, introduce yourself, and please do make your contribution.
Can I proceed?
Please proceed. Please proceed and introduce yourself.
This is Eric from Kenya. My input it goes to the review of some of the international legal instruments, such as the Bamako and other similars. This is the reason for me to put this way is because for the entrepreneurs to assess or to sustain the market, they need to increase their production. However, some of the material that they assess locally are not that enough. So for them to scale up the production or get enough volume of this raw material, they are sometimes forced to look to the neighboring countries to see if such demands or such raw material can help them sustain this production. However, when it comes to the transboundary movement of some of this material classified as waste, there is a problem. Some of these waste, there's a problem in such a way that, or restriction in such a way that the movement of this material is not well allowed to move to the neighboring country as much as is not going outside the continent. So there's need for us to see how we can create a specialist or priority to some of these raw material within the region in such a way that the circular economy is scaled up by the entrepreneurs who are involved in this production. This again goes to the producers or some of the bigger companies who are able to sell their product in the neighboring countries, or that is their market. But there is a challenge again when it comes to them collecting these products, which now become waste, to repatriate them back to the origin or where the educator is. Now they are classified as hazardous material and guided by the Bamako Convention in this case. So there is a lot of confusion or contradiction in one or the other, which need the help and the intervention of the UNEP and the global bodies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric, for that substantive contribution. We would like to invite more contributions on this question, the role of UNEP and the wider international community, and how can we play a role in addressing the gaps and challenges highlighted during today's conversation. And I see quite a lot of contributions on the chat box, but we still have a chance to make some oral contribution. So if you'd like to make a contribution, would really appreciate. Somna, we've been trying to get you to speak severally, but I do see you've made a contribution here from Mauritius. You're engaged in the textile and plastic PET bottles since 20 years, and Mauritius implements innovative strategies for environmental protection, such as bags banned, plastic straws have also been banned, and financial assistance to PET bottlers, recyclers, and exporters. Okay, so that contribution will definitely be captured under the other first two questions that we raised. We are welcoming contributions to the role of UNEP and the wider international community. So if you'd like to make a verbal contribution, please do raise your hand.
Can I go again? Sorry.
Please go ahead, Eric.
This is Eric. We need also to give the informal sector, rather to recognize their contribution in this market, because when you compare the African content and the European market, we find that in Africa the informal sector are the majority and the bulk of this, the West entrepreneurs. So there's a need for us to see how we can increase their capacities. That means looking at how we can empower them to understand more issues on health, environmental standards, as well as risk associated with their operation. At the same time, also teaching them on how to do what we call bookkeeping and access to market, access to finance, and also promoting their technology. We understand some of the technology they are using, however much it's helped to depollute the environment in one way or the other, or contribute in the environmental pollution. So if there is a way we can help them scale up their innovation to become clean and affordable, that would be recommended, because the current technology that is in the market is way behold their achievement, is way behold their acquisition. So they tend to go back and develop or fabricate technology that they can be able to possess and operate. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. We also take note of the contributions from Joyce Chapunga, saying support and fund research and development on SCP in developing countries. We also take note of the contribution from Barbara, including contribution from Florence Adongo in terms of supporting resource mobilization and advocating for mainstreaming in international and national strategies and policy preparations, dialogue and scaling up of best practices, which is indeed within the framework of this UNEA resolution. And UNEP should also make follow-ups with member states to ensure that they are progressing in formulating and implementing product policies. And we also take note of your contribution, Elizabeth Kasogo. Trying to scroll down. Yes, on supporting the development of food loss and food waste policies as in the whole area around sustainable food systems. We would also request participants who connected through Nora's link to register so that your names can be properly captured. So thanks so much, Eric Guantai, for providing your contacts, and would like to encourage others to do so. I'm now going back to my participants list to see if there are any other hands that we might have missed. I do not see any other hands. So, but as we said, we would like to request you to continue providing inputs as much as you can. We will provide you with email addresses of where you can send additional inputs. So this is really not the end, but really the beginning of our consultation. And we really appreciate each one of you for making your time to come here, but also encourage you to, as you've been listening to the conversation, to provide your further inputs as we move along before the end of this month. I can see another contribution here which says UNEP can assist to finance impact evaluations so that successful programs can be upscaled and that there is a standardized approach in the area of circular economy, product design, etc. And UNEP should promote knowledge exchange such as look and learn tours among developing nations. And this, of course, is very crucial and within the mandates of the United Nations and international organizations. There is a contribution from Newton Owino from Kisumu, Kenya, and he's in the area of fish waste management. And he says, as an SMME, he feels there's need to intervene in the levels in the levies charged on innovation products, and UN needs to assist in developing eco-labels for innovative products. And Mr. Zongo says, bring together public and private sector to work together towards a common goal and shape together environments that induces the target and targets change. So thank you very much for your very active contribution, and we really appreciate your continued collaboration, support in terms of ensuring that we fulfill the mandate that was placed on us on UNEA 4, and we are able to go back to UNEA 5 with a positive report in terms of best practices, in terms of policies that have been put in place, including guiding us on how well as a UN family we can be able to support you through this major transitions that we are discussing right here. I do not see any further. Hello? Is somebody? Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, Yusuf is back.
Okay, sorry, I think it's somebody who is on the phone.
Hello, Yusuf is back. Hello, Yusuf.
Okay, sorry about that. I think there is a person who's on the call. So we will proceed now to our session, and I'd just like to request Lee. Lee, would you like to make any conclusions before we conclude this session for this afternoon?
Hello?
Okay, Lee, it seems Lee from CSIR cannot hear me.
Hi, Cecilia, thank you very much. I can hear you now. I was talking with my microphone muted. Apologies. No, I think just in conclusion, firstly, I want to just thank you for so graciously handling today's session. I just want to put up onto the slide or onto the screen, I just want to put up the final slide of the presentation. And that is just to share the information of contact details for the next steps. And of course, as Clay indicated earlier, and as you have also indicated, we would like to receive submissions, written submissions in order for us to formulate recommendations. On the screen, there's information, contact details for our regional office, as well as from Claire, and as well as my details and Dr. Valentina Russo's contact details at the CSR. Thank you very much, Cecilia.
Okay, so thank you very much, Lee. Distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, I am now very pleased to move to actually say, not to move us to another section, but to say that we have reached the closing of this consultation. As you have seen on the screen now, the next steps, and as Lee has already emphasized, please submit any of your written inputs to formulate recommendations. You have until the 30th of September to make this inputs. To my colleagues, Rhoda Wachira and also Claire Thibault, the email addresses are provided. And for those that would like to share more inputs on national product policies and good examples of design practices, you have until October, end of October to do that. And please do send those in to Dr. Valentina and also to Mr. Lee at the CSIR. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the CSIR for being party and to working with us in ensuring a successful consultation. I'd also like to thank my colleagues in the Paris office, Elisa Tonda and Claire Thibault, and my colleagues at the Africa Regional Office, of UNEP based in Nairobi to say a really big thank you for ensuring that we do have a very, very successful consultation. Distinguished representatives, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And I would like at this juncture to say thank you very much for your attention and have a very, very good rest of
Right, thank you very much. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Letitia. Thank you.
Thanks. Greetings to the family.
Thank you very much.
Haji NCPCSA. NCPCSA.
Will do so. The same for you. Thank you
very much.
Right, thank you so much for having us. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.